What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to take a little bit of a look at Quicksilver. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for my Quicksilver review, and I'll tell you what, Quicksilver's a weird one to me, because I wasn't excited about Quicksilver. I was excited about Scarlet Witch. And they both arrived on the same day. I'm over in the UK, and for those of you that don't know, they basically got a release on the same day over here. And so they both turned up, and I'm super excited about Scarlet Witch, not terribly excited about Quicksilver. So I sleeve them both up, and I start playing a bunch of games with Scarlet Witch. And I'm having a jolly old time, I'm quite enjoying it. And then I feel a little bit bad, because I haven't played any games with Quicksilver. And then I played one game with Quicksilver, and didn't go back to Scarlet Witch for a while. Because actually, it turned out that I love Quicksilver. The too long didn't watch version of Quicksilver it's up there with characters like Ant-Man in my oh my goodness, I love him, I love him, I love him category, and Quicksilver's going to be coming back to the table over and over again, which is impressive because of all the characters released so far, Quicksilver is about the one that I just have like no affinity whatsoever for in terms of the comics, and I read an awful lot of the comics. So yeah, Quicksilver. So starting off then, having a little bit of a look at Pietro Maximoff, your alter ego form. You've got a recovery of 3, which is fine. It's about standard, honestly. It's pretty nice. And you've got a really... Oh, so you got the standard hand size of 6. And you've got hit points of 9. Now, hit points of 9 is absolutely tiny. Like, proper tiny. But having said that, it's a, you know, standard kind of human that runs fast. So this is something we probably should have seen coming. So you have got low hit points, but you can manage that. We'll get there in a moment. But you've got the same alter ego action as we see on Wanda Maximoff, which is you get to discard 2 cards from your hand and draw 2 cards. But if Wanda's in play, you get to draw 3 cards instead. So if Wanda's in play, you actually do get yourself a hand advantage. You get yourself an extra card than you had. Otherwise, all you're really doing here is cycling cards, but you're seeing more cards. And there's a fair bit of setup that needs to be done with Quicksilver here. So being able to cycle through your cards quickly, especially in the early game, I found to be very, very important indeed. This is a pretty big one. Moving over to Quicksilver, the first thing that should jump out to you here is we've got attack of 1, thwart of 1, defense of 1, all of which are terrible. Like, literally couldn't... Well, that's a lie. Hulk has got lower thwart than that. But unless you're playing some weird kind of deck, like Hulk, you literally cannot get lower. It's terrible. But then again, doesn't necessarily matter, because we got plenty of ways to up it and plenty of ways to make ourselves active, like the skill Super Speed, that after you use thwart, attack or defense, you ready him, limited to once per phase. Now, what's really, really important here is that once per phase means once during the hero phase and once during the villain phase. Which means that you essentially use him to attack or thwart and ready. And then you use him again and he's not ready, he's exhausted. But remember, you ready yourself at the end of your turn. And then during, or the end of the hero phase. And then during the villain phase, you defend and make yourself ready again. So that means you can either defend twice during the villain phase, which is pretty gosh darned awesome, or you can just defend for free. Like, you can defend for free every single time. Which is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, the 1/1/1 is still very low, but as we're going to see, there's plenty of ways to pop them up. And the fact that you are attacking or thwarting twice during your turn or phase and defending during the villain phase really starts to help very quickly. We got the same low hit points of 9 and the standard hand size of 5 here. So what we really want to do is we want to ready Quicksilver over and over again, and we want to boost up his stats. Now, in terms of boosting up the stats, you're all right here, because we've got Accelerated Reflex, a 2-cost upgrade that gives you +1 defense, Hyper Perception, that is a 2-cost upgrade that gives you +1 thwart, and Reinforced Sinew, which is a 2-cost upgrade that gives you +1 attack. And this is what I'm referring to when I say that Quicksilver is a bit of a setup character, because you become infinitely better when those free cards are in play. Now your stats are 2-2-2, which are the standard hero stats, but you still make yourself active every time you use a basic power, or I should say the first time each phase that you use a basic power. Now, they are the normal things, but we can actually go a little bit more, because there are 3 copies of Adrenaline Rush. Now, this is a 1-cost upgrade, so it stays in play, or Civic Duty, which is a 1-cost upgrade, so it stays in play. And when you feel like it, you can discard them, and if you discard Adrenaline Rush, you get +1 attack. Civic Duty, you get +1 thwart. Bearing in mind, yes, they can stack. So I can put all 3 of my Adrenaline Rush in play and then just kind of leave them there. And then I can have this monster turn where I discard all 3 of them, and my attack goes up by 3. Bearing in mind, we should hopefully already have Reinforced Sinew in play, so that potentially puts my attack up to 5. Which is getting into ridiculous territory. I should mention, if you play out of the box, if you play the protection out of the box, which is generally how I do the reviews, you do have 2 copies of Armored Vest, a 1-cost upgrade which will give you 1 extra defense. So generally speaking, with Quicksilver, I've got Armored Vest, almost always in play because there's 2 of them, and I've usually got Accelerated Reflex, so I've got a defense of 3, and remember, I am just defending for free every villain phase, because I defend, and then I ready myself. So I've not got the downside of defending that I'm now exhausted for the start of my hero phase, no, because I ready myself when I defend. So even though I've got really low hit points of 9, it doesn't feel like you've got low hit points of 9, not when you've got a defense of 3 and you're defending with no downside every turn. That really helps. Now, we've also got 2 copies here of Maximum Velocity, which is limited to once during your phase, but that is a 2-cost event that gives you +2 thwart, attack, and defense until the end of the round. So now your base stats, without any extras, go up to 3-3-3, and we've already seen all of the extras that you can get. And I'm readying myself, so essentially I'm kind of attacking for free, and then defending for free during the villain phase, and that's if I don't have anything else that will make me active. Because that's where Always Be Running comes in. Now, there are 4 copies of Always Be Running, and it is the card that really makes Quicksilver tick. Because it is a 1-cost event that just readies Quicksilver. And you will find there are many turns where you use Quicksilver, ready with Super Speed, use Quicksilver, ready with Always Be Running, and you've used 3 times during the hero phase, bearing in mind you're also going to get to defend for free during the villain phase. And of course, because it's a 1-cost event, it's not outside the realms of possibility. You know, I've had games where I will draw till 6 in Alter Ego mode, and I'll have 3 Always Be Running and 3 other cards, so I'll just go into hero mode, and then between Quicksilver, the skill, and 3 Always Be Running, I will be able to attack or thwart 5 times in 1 turn. Which is ridiculous, especially when you've got those upgrades out, which can boost it up. The other combo I find happening quite a lot is Maximum Velocity plus Always Be Running. You've got a hand size of 5 in hero mode, so this works perfectly. Maximum Velocity, Always Be Running, 3 other cards, 2 to pay for Maximum Velocity, 1 to pay for Always Be Running, and you go up to 3-3-3, or a lot of the times you got the upgrades up 4-4-4, and then you get 3 uses of Quicksilver. So you attack for 4, and then use Super Speed, attack for 4, Always Be Running, attack for 4, and then during the villain phase you defend for 4. These aren't weird over-the-top combos that never happen. I have had multiple always be running, honestly, in most games. But the combo of maximum velocity with always be running, it comes out a lot more than you'd think it would, especially with the superpowered siblings alter ego action. It is, frankly, ridiculous. Now, your signature ally here is Scarlet Witch, which is kind of nice, but I'm not loving Scarlet Witch, honestly. You've got free cost, free health, which is standard, 1 thwart or attack taking a damage back, and when you use one of her basic powers, you discard the top card of the encounter deck, and you gain +1 for each boost icon. Now, maybe I've just been getting unlucky, because there are plenty of times you'll hit a free boost icon card and you'll be attacking or thwarting for 4, but like every time I use her, I end up hitting for 1 or 2, and there are a million allies out there that could thwart or attack for 2, taking 1 damage back, and it really doesn't make me terribly happy. I love Scarlet Witch as a character, but I'm going to be honest with you, my experience of the ally here has been honestly kind of disappointing. Although I'm sure with more games, I would end up having a bunch of turns that went nuts, although I have played quite a lot of games with Quicksilver. Now, we also have 2 copies of Double Time here, a 2-cost event that twice lets you deal 2 damage to an enemy or remove 2 threat from a scheme. So, essentially, this is, it is quite nice. There are going to be turns where it's not worth it because of all you can do with Quicksilver, but there are going to be plenty of turns where you take out a 2-health minion while removing the last 2 threat from a side scheme, and this works quite nicely. Speed Cyclone is a card I didn't really like looking at it, and then when I played with it, I absolutely adored it. You pay as much as you like, and however much you pay, stun certain number of enemies. So if you're against Claw, for instance, Claw will have a lot of high HP allies. And a lot of the time, there's going to be turns where you can take them out, but you need a turn or 2 to actually set it up. And that's where this comes in. You go and just stun everybody, and then you get to come along and finish them off later. Or there have been several games I've actually used Speed Cyclone to end the game, because I can kind of win next turn, so I just use Speed Cyclone to stun all of the enemies, so they can't really do anything to me. And I hope the encounter card isn't that bad, and then I just win the following game. It's actually a really useful card, either for buying yourself a turn, or sometimes for winning the game, because you basically sit there, none of the enemies can actually go about attacking you, and from there you just kind of win. It's an awful lot of fun. Serval Industries is a really nice card in Alter Ego. You can exhaust it only costs 1 to play, and shuffle 2 Quicksilver cards from your discard pile into your deck. So for me, a lot of the time, it's always be running and maximum velocity, or just 2 always be running. But this works very nicely indeed. The only real issue I had here was that I often wanted to stay in hero mode, because I would set up and then just have nuts turns using these over and over. But when I could afford to go into Alter Ego mode, this helped me out greatly, and it is only a 1-cost card. We've also got Friction Resistance. Now, it's a 3-cost upgrade, which you'll notice is very expensive in the context of Quicksilver, because they're mostly 1- and 2-cost cards. But after you ready Quicksilver, you ready this card, and you get to exhaust it to generate a physical resource. Bearing in mind how often you can ready Quicksilver, you will often end up having, a bunch of 2-cost cards, but because you keep readying Quicksilver, they all turn into 1-cost cards, and although it's a lot to get into play, it can really help you throughout the game. Now, you are protection out of the box here, and I don't mind the protection suite out of the box, but it's nothing terribly special. It is the Quicksilver cards that make me super excited. Multiple Man is a 4-cost 2-health ally, which isn't great, with 1 thwart and 1 attack taking a damage back, which really isn't great. But when you play Multiple Man, you get to search your deck and hand for a copy and put it into play. And there are 3 of them in the deck, so essentially you can just play 3 of them. So it's 4 cost, and you play 3 of them, and they're all pretty terrible, but the way I end up playing Multiple Man is just a tiny bit of thwart or attack here or there, and then I've got 3 attacks where I can just block with Multiple Man, so I'm not taking any damage. Although, admittedly, I'm often blocking and not taking any damage using Quicksilver. Do remember that against Ultron, you are going to end up having an awful lot of 1 health drones running around. So your free multiple man between them will essentially be able to take out 6 of these Ultron drones before they go down. Just a thought. Warlock I'm not a fan of. I end up never putting Warlock into play. Free cost, free health, but again you've got 1 thwart, 1 attack taking a damage for each. And I generally want 2 here. And you can spend a science resource to heal up to 2 damage, so Warlock stays on the field. But essentially, it's just 1 thwart or attack twice for free cost. And then you can keep paying 1 to thwart or attack for 1 twice. I don't find it to be a good use of resources. I almost never put Warlock into play. One I do like, however, is Never Back Down. A 1-cost event, and when you defend, you get +2 defense. And if you take no damage, you stun the attacking enemy. But bearing in mind, you're often going to be sitting there with 3 defense anyway. So this is going to put you up to 5 defense. And once you're on 5 defense, you will often be taking no damage. So I'm paying 1 cost to essentially take no damage and stun the attacking enemy. Yep, Never Back Down sees a lot of play. Sidestep is a card that lets you prevent free damage for 1 cost. And if you paid with an energy resource, you deal a damage. It's fine, but most of the time I'm spending it on Never Back Down instead. We've then got 3 copies of Nerves of Steel, which is a 2-cost upgrade, but it lets you exhaust it to generate an energy resource for a defense event, which is quite nice. And then you've got that team-up card, Order and Chaos, where if you've got Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, you get to essentially cancel a Treachery card and deal 2 damage to the villain. If you're playing multiplayer, obviously this is way better. Otherwise, you have to have your signature ally in play to actually use it, which sometimes you will, but it's, shall we say, not a guarantee. Now, your obligation here is Need for Speed, and it's another one of these no-brainer ones. You can either be in alter ego mode and exhaust yourself, bearing in mind a lot of the time, you're going to exhaust yourself when this comes out as an obligation, as an encounter card, and then just play and always be running and still be active next turn. Or you can exhaust your identity, and you're not allowed to ready it until the end of your next turn, and you discard it so it can come back. So the only reason to do this will be to stay in hero mode, except you still end up exhausted and you can't ready. So I don't know why you would ever... It doesn't make any sense to not just go to Pietro and exhaust him. Because you can still go straight back into hero mode next turn, but then you can play someone that can always be running to ready yourself. So you exhaust yourself, remove it from the game. It happens. Now, looking very quickly at the signature villain, it's a bit of a weird one. Because Avalanche here, 1 scheme, 2 attack, 4 health. None of them are scary. And when Avalanche comes out, you can usually one-hit him. You can usually take him out of the game really quickly. But when Avalanche comes out, you've got Insight 2. So 2 scheme immediately, or 2 threat immediately goes on the main scheme, which, if you're not careful, will lose you the game. And when it's revealed, each player must either take 2 indirect damage or exhaust their identity. So Avalanche isn't a scary minion when it's out, but when minion comes out and you take 2 threat and either 2 damage or get exhausted, yeah, that is extremely harsh. Now, the signature side scheme here is Extortion of Seismic Proportion. It's fine. Insight 1 does put a threat on the main scheme, which can hurt if you're not careful, but it's 2 threat per player. And it is a crisis side scheme. You've got to take it out before you take out the main scheme. But you're probably going to get 2, well, you're going to get 2+ uses of Quicksilver every turn. You'll almost always have 2 thwarts some way or another. So getting rid of this is not difficult. Similarly, the upgrade, Vibration Resistance. You either attach it to Avalanche or the villain. It reduces damage done by 1, which is annoying, but you can exhaust your hero to discard it, bearing in mind you get extra uses of your hero, so it's not usually the end of the world. But Earthquake really sucks, because you've got Insight 1, so you take a threat on the main scheme when it comes out, and when it's revealed, you discard 2 cards from your hand and exhaust your identity, which is horrible. And as a boost, you either have to spend 2 physical resources or exhaust your identity. And Quicksilver out of the box really does not have many physical resources. Yeah, they're mostly in Never Back Down. There's like 5 and 1 or 2 only type. It's not looking good. So this is actually the worst bit about seeing Avalanche come out, is knowing there are now 2 copies of Earthquake in the deck, and Earthquake sucks. Overall, I like Quicksilver. I really like playing as Quicksilver. When you get to the stage where you've got those upgrades in play and you can have those turns with both maximum velocity and always be running, I mean, there have been multiple turns where I have had like 3 uses of Quicksilver with an attack and thwart of 4 each and then defended for 4. And at that stage, you are just going a little bit nuts. And I am into it, ladies and gentlemen. I am into it. There are also the rare turns where with a 6-card hand, you've actually got maximum velocity to always be running and a double resource. So you can use maximum velocity and then double always be running. Those turns are hilarious. I am a fan of Quicksilver. I'm giving him between 4 and 5 Wossies. We don't give half Wossies. That would be barbaric. Quicksilver is really surprising to me. I'm not a fan of the character, and when we saw the initial reveal, I was not particularly pumped. And then we saw an expanded reveal, and I went, oh, that could be fun. But I still went straight for Scarlet Witch. And as soon as I sat down and actually started playing with Quicksilver, oh, it's a beautiful deck to play with, ladies and gentlemen. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk Marvel Champions and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.